You walk in after 10 hours of meetings and decisions, and there it is again, right there in your living room, that same pile of laundry, sitting there for 2 weeks. You see it, you know it's there, you still can't touch it. You're not lazy, you're not dirty. Something else is going on in your brain right now, and once you understand what it actually is, you'll never look at a messy room the same way again. For years, the assumption has been simple. A messy house means you don't care enough to fix it. But psychologists who study clutter, motivation, and stress have found something far more interesting. The mess isn't the problem, it's the symptom. The real explanation lives in how your brain handles decisions, emotions, and exhaustion, starting with something scientists call your mental battery. Picture a single sock on the floor. You reach for it, but picking it up isn't one action, it's a decision. Is it clean or dirty? Where does it even go? Does it still have a match? Now multiply that by every object scattered across the room. Cleaning stops looking like one task. It becomes hundreds of decisions, stacked on top of each other, waiting. In the late 1990s, psychologist Roy Baumeister at Case Western Reserve University ran a now famous experiment. He filled a room with the smell of fresh-baked cookies, then set a plate of them next to a bowl of plain radishes. Some were told to eat only the radishes and leave the cookies untouched. Afterward, everyone was given a puzzle to solve, one that was secretly impossible. The people who'd eaten the cookies kept trying for close to 19 minutes. The ones who'd had to resist those cookies gave up in about 8. Resisting temptation had drained something. Baumeister called it ego depletion, the idea that willpower works less like a personality trait and more like a battery, and batteries run out. Now think about your day. By the time you get home, you've already made hundreds of decisions and managed your emotions since the moment you woke up. Your battery isn't low, it's empty. And that messy room, it's nothing but a pile of decisions waiting to be made, which is exactly what you have nothing left to give. But decision fatigue is only part of the story, because the objects filling your space aren't always just objects. Psychologist Randy Frost at Smith College spent decades studying why people hold on to things that look like clutter to everyone else. Working with Gail Steckati at Boston University, he found that an item is often valued not for what it is, but for what it represents. That concert ticket stub in your drawer isn't paper, it's a night you don't want to lose. Throwing it away doesn't feel like tidying up, it feels like losing a piece of yourself. And clutter doesn't just sit there quietly, it creates real physical stress. Researchers at UCLA's Center on Everyday Lives of Families followed 32 Los Angeles households for years and found something remarkable. Mothers who described their homes as cluttered or chaotic had measurably higher levels of cortisol, your body's main stress hormone, than the ones who called their homes restful. Curiously, the fathers in the same homes barely mentioned the mess at all. So if you've ever felt your chest tighten just walking into a messy room, that's not in your head. Clutter can raise your stress hormones the same way a demanding boss might. So you avoid it, not because you don't care, because avoiding it is the natural response to something that stresses you out, which means the mess sits a little longer, grows a little bigger, becomes a little harder to face. A loop that feeds itself. This pattern usually doesn't start in adulthood either. For many, it was quietly built years earlier, back in childhood. In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman at Pennsylvania University ran a series of experiments, first with animals, later extended to people, that led him to a concept called learned helplessness. Once a subject learns their actions can't change an outcome, they eventually stop trying, even when change becomes possible again. And it isn't really about the original situation, it's about what happens to effort once it stops feeling useful. Now apply that to your own home growing up. Maybe you tidied your room only to have it dumped out again while someone searched for something else. Maybe you grew up in constant chaos where no one ever showed you what an organized life even looks like. If that was you, giving up on effort that never worked wasn't laziness. It was your mind doing something smart, refusing to waste energy on something that never changed anything. The trouble is, that lesson doesn't stay behind in childhood. It follows you into adulthood, into a home you never quite learned how or why to take care of. Sometimes, though, there's something even heavier underneath all of this, something that has nothing to do with childhood, everything to do with what's happening in your brain right now. Depression is often pictured as sadness, but that's only half of it. It also hits the part of your brain responsible for planning, starting, and following through. So you look at a single cup in the sink, and you don't just see a cup, you see a project. Wash it, dry it, put it away, face the next thing, then the next, and the part of your brain that's supposed to say, go ahead, start, it just doesn't fire, not the way it used to. If that's familiar, it's not that you don't want a clean home, it's that your motivation system isn't switching on, no matter how much you want it to. And even if you genuinely want to change, there's one more trap waiting for you. Psychiatrist Aaron Beck, also at Pennsylvania University, spent his career studying the thought patterns that quietly sabotage people, patterns he called all-or-nothing thinking. It's the belief that if something can't be done perfectly, it isn't worth doing at all. For cleaning, that turns into one brutal little thought. If you don't have time to do it all properly, why bother starting at all? Remember that laundry pile from the beginning? Some of what's keeping you frozen in front of it isn't exhaustion. It's a quiet, almost invisible belief that picking up one pile doesn't count as progress unless you can finish everything else too. So you do nothing, not because you don't care, because your mind has convinced you that nothing is the only honest option. So here's the real takeaway, whether this was you or someone close to you. A messy house is rarely about laziness, and it's almost never about not caring. It's usually a visible sign of an invisible load, decision fatigue, emotional weight, or a nervous system that never learned it was safe to try. Understanding that won't magically clean your room, but it will replace shame with clarity, and clarity is where actual change starts. When you stop fighting yourself and pick just one small thing, one drawer, one cup, one pile, your mental battery has a little less to fight against. That's not a full fix, but it's a real starting point, and sometimes that's exactly what a frozen mind needs most. If this explained someone you know, or even yourself, tell me in the comments. And if you want to keep understanding the hidden reasons behind human behavior, subscribe, because this is just the beginning.